The physical therapist's hands were steady as she guided the injured man through another painful stretch, but her heart ached watching him bite back a groan that threatened to escape his clenched jaw. Brianna Cole had seen plenty of patients come through the doors of Riverside Rehabilitation Center, but something about Vincent Palmer made her pause every time she entered his room. Maybe it was the quiet determination in his dark eyes, or the way he never complained despite the obvious agony of rebuilding his shattered leg. The car accident 3 months ago had left him with multiple fractures, torn ligaments, and a recovery timeline that would test anyone's patience. "You're pushing too hard again," Brianna said softly, releasing the pressure on his knee. "I know you want to speed this up, but healing doesn't work that way." Vincent exhaled slowly, his muscular frame tense against the therapy table. Even in a hospital gown and weakened by weeks of immobility, he carried himself with an intensity that suggested he was used to being in control. His dark hair was longer than he probably preferred, falling across his forehead as he struggled through each exercise. "I have things I need to get back to," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "People depending on me. And they'll still be there when you're actually ready," Brianna countered, meeting his gaze without flinching. She'd learned early in her career that coddling patients didn't help them. Compassion, yes. Honesty, absolutely. But false hope or rushing recovery only led to setbacks. "If you push too fast now, you'll be right back where you started. Is that what you want?" Something flickered in Vincent's expression. Frustration, maybe, or resignation. He looked away, jaw working. "No." "Good. Then let's do this right." Brianna moved to his other side, her practiced hands assessing muscle tension and range of motion. She was 26, relatively young for her field, but her reputation at Riverside was solid. Patients trusted her because she told them the truth and worked her tail off to help them recover. Vincent Palmer had arrived at the facility 6 weeks ago after his initial hospital stay, transferred specifically for intensive physical therapy. His file said he was 32, unmarried, and listed his occupation simply as consultant. The emergency contact was a woman named Sarah Palmer, presumably his sister, who visited twice a week like clockwork. Beyond that, Brianna knew little about his life before the accident, and Vincent didn't volunteer information. That suited her fine. She wasn't here to make friends or pry into her patients' personal lives. She was here to help them heal. "Let's try some weight-bearing exercises," she suggested, positioning the parallel bars. "Just a few steps today." Vincent's expression tightened, but he nodded. Getting him vertical was always the hardest part. Brianna braced herself, offering her shoulder for support as he shifted his weight off the table. He was considerably taller than her 5'6" frame, and despite the muscle loss from weeks of inactivity, he was still solid and strong. The moment his injured leg took weight, Vincent's breath hitched, sweat beaded on his forehead. "I've got you," Brianna assured him, her arm steady around his waist. "You're not going to fall." "How can you be so sure?" The question came out strained. "Because I've never dropped a patient yet, and I'm not starting with you." She waited for him to find his balance, patient and unwavering. Ready for the next step, it took 15 minutes to walk 10 feet. By the end, Vincent was trembling with exhaustion, his face pale. Brianna helped him back to the bed, then grabbed a cold water bottle from the mini fridge. "Here, drink slowly." He accepted it gratefully, hands shaking slightly. "Thank you. That's what I'm here for." Brianna made notes on her tablet, documenting his progress. "You did well today." "Better than last week. Doesn't feel like it, I know, but trust me, you're improving." She glanced up, offering a small smile. "Recovery isn't linear. Some days will feel like setbacks. The important thing is consistency." Vincent studied her for a long moment, something unreadable in his dark eyes. "You really believe that?" "I've seen it happen too many times not to." Brianna tucked her tablet under her arm. "Get some rest. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon." As she left his room, Brianna allowed herself a moment of concern. Vincent was progressing, but his frustration was mounting. She'd seen patients lose hope at this stage, give up or spiral into depression when recovery dragged on. She made a mental note to check in with Dr. Morrison about maybe arranging a session with the facility's counselor. The rest of her day passed in the familiar rhythm of patient care. Mrs. Henderson working on her hip replacement, Miguel recovering from spinal surgery, teenage athlete Cody rebuilding his torn ACL. Each person had their own story, their own pain, their own reasons for fighting through the grueling process of physical therapy. By 6 o'clock, Brianna was exhausted but satisfied. She changed out of her scrubs in the staff locker room, pulled her honey-brown hair from its practical ponytail, and headed out to the parking lot. Her ancient Honda Civic sputtered to life on the third try, and she made another mental note to schedule that maintenance appointment she'd been putting off. Money was tight, as always. Physical therapy paid decently, but student loans ate up a significant chunk of her paycheck. Her small apartment was affordable but basic, and luxuries were few and far between. Still, Brianna had chosen this career knowing it wouldn't make her rich. Helping people mattered more than a fat bank account. She stopped at the grocery store on the way home, carefully comparing prices and sticking to her list. Pasta, vegetables, chicken breast, coffee, practical meals that would stretch through the week. At the checkout, she counted her cash carefully, making sure she had enough left over for gas. Back at her apartment, Brianna kicked off her shoes and collapsed onto her second-hand couch with a sigh. Her feet ached, her back was sore, and she still needed to prep meals for the next few days. But first, just 5 minutes of stillness. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Emma. "Drinks this weekend." Brianna considered her bank account balance and replied, "Coffee instead." "My treat." The response came quickly. "You need to let loose more, but fine, coffee it is." She smiled despite her fatigue. Emma was a marketing executive with a lifestyle Brianna could barely imagine. Designer clothes, trendy restaurants, frequent vacations. They'd been roommates in college before their careers took them in vastly different directions. But somehow the friendship endured. After heating up leftover soup for dinner, Brianna showered and climbed into bed with a medical journal. She liked staying current on the latest rehabilitation techniques, always looking for better ways to help her patients. Tonight, though, the words blurred together. She kept thinking about Vincent Palmer and the defeated look in his eyes when he struggled through those 10 agonizing steps. Recovery was as much mental as physical. She needed to find a way to reach him, to help him see past the frustration to the progress he was making. The next morning, Brianna arrived at Riverside with a plan. After her morning patients, she headed to Vincent's room with her tablet and a deck of cards. He looked surprised when she walked in. "It's not time for therapy yet. This is therapy, just a different kind." She pulled up a chair beside his bed. "We're going to play poker." Vincent's eyebrows rose. "Poker. You heard me. And every time you win a hand, I'll answer one question about your recovery. Honestly, no sugarcoating." Brianna started shuffling the cards with practiced ease. Her father had taught her years ago, one of the few good memories from her complicated childhood. "Deal." A hint of interest sparked in his expression, the first real emotion she'd seen from him beyond frustration and pain. "What do you get if you win?" "The satisfaction of taking your money." She grinned. "Metaphorically speaking, we'll use these." She dumped a handful of wrapped candies onto the tray table. Vincent actually almost smiled. Almost. You're serious about this? Completely. Sometimes the best therapy happens when patients aren't thinking about therapy. Brianna dealt the cards. 5-card draw. You remember how to play. I think I can manage. He picked up his cards, and Brianna noticed his hands were steadier today. They played for 30 minutes, trading candy back and forth. Vincent won the first 2 hands, then Brianna took 3 in a row. He was competitive, she realized, and the distraction of the game loosened something in his tightly controlled demeanor. "Okay, I won, so I get my question," Vincent said after winning his 3rd hand. "When will I be able to walk without assistance?" Brianna considered her response carefully. "If you keep progressing at your current rate, probably another 8 to 10 weeks before you can manage short distances with a cane. 3 to 4 months before you're walking normally without support." His jaw tightened. "That long? I know it feels like forever." "But Vincent, your injuries were severe. The fact that you're walking at all is remarkable." She laid down her cards. "Your turn to deal." As he shuffled awkwardly, favoring his good side, Vincent asked quietly, "Do you ever get tired of it, watching people struggle, honestly?" "The struggle is the important part." Brianna accepted her cards. "If it was easy, you wouldn't appreciate it when you finally walk out of here on your own 2 feet. The hard stuff teaches us what we're capable of." Philosophical for a physical therapist. "I contain multitudes." She won the next hand and collected her candy with exaggerated triumph. "Besides, I didn't get into this field because I like easy. I got into it because I like watching people prove everyone wrong about what they can overcome." Vincent studied her with those intense dark eyes. "Is that what I'm doing? Proving people wrong? I don't know. Are you?" Brianna shuffled the deck. Another round, he nodded, and something had shifted between them. Some wall had lowered just slightly. It wasn't friendship exactly, but it was connection. And that mattered in the long recovery process ahead. Over the following weeks, their therapy sessions took on a new dynamic. Brianna pushed Vincent hard through the painful exercises, but she also brought cards or puzzles, or sometimes just conversation. She learned he had a dry sense of humor that emerged when he was distracted from his pain. He asked intelligent questions about his recovery and actually listened to her answers. His sister Sarah started arriving during some of the afternoon sessions. She was a polished woman in her late 30s with the same dark eyes as Vincent, and she watched her brother's progress with a mixture of relief and concern. "He's doing remarkably well," Brianna told her one afternoon while Vincent was with Dr. Morrison. "His determination is actually working in his favor now." "That sounds like Vincent." Sarah smiled, but there was worry in her expression. "He's used to being in control of everything. This has been hard on him." "Recovery is hard on everyone," Brianna said gently. "But he's strong and he's willing to do the work. That's half the battle." Sarah hesitated, then said, "Thank you for everything you're doing. Vincent doesn't open up to people easily, but he talks about you, says you don't treat him like he's broken." "He's not broken, he's healing." "There's a difference." After Sarah left, Brianna found herself thinking about that conversation. Vincent didn't open up to people easily. She'd noticed that the way he kept himself contained and controlled. Even in their card games and conversations, he revealed very little about his life outside these walls. Not that she'd shared much either. Professional boundaries were important. But she found herself curious about who Vincent Palmer really was, what he did that had people depending on him, what his life looked like before the accident reshaped everything. 2 months into his stay at Riverside, Vincent graduated to walking with a cane. It was a significant milestone, and Brianna couldn't hide her pride as she watched him navigate the parallel bars independently. "How does it feel?" she asked, like progress. Vincent's smile was genuine this time, transforming his serious face into something almost boyish. Finally. You've earned it, every painful step. Brianna made notes on her tablet. We'll start extending your distances next week, building stamina. I can't wait. The sarcasm was light, almost affectionate. They'd fallen into an easy rapport, Brianna realized. She looked forward to their sessions, enjoyed the challenge of pushing him while supporting him. Vincent had become more than just another patient, though she was careful not to examine that thought too closely. Professional boundaries. She repeated it like a mantra. That weekend over coffee with Emma, Brianna found herself talking about Vincent more than she intended. Emma's eyes gleamed with interest. You like him? He's my patient, Brianna protested. That's not a denial. Emma sipped her latte, perfectly manicured nails tapping against the cup. What's he like, besides injured, determined, stubborn, smart? Brianna caught herself smiling. He's got this intensity about him, like he's used to getting things done. The accident forced him to slow down and he hates it, but he's handling it. Is he cute? Emma. What? It's a legitimate question. Brianna rolled her eyes but answered honestly. Yes, he's attractive. Dark hair, dark eyes, strong features, tall. He probably looks even better when he's not exhausted from physical therapy. So you've noticed. Emma looked entirely too pleased with herself. When does he check out of the facility? Probably another month, maybe 6 weeks. He's progressing well. The thought of Vincent leaving created an unexpected hollowness in Brianna's chest. Then he'll move to outpatient therapy closer to wherever he lives. You should ask him out. Absolutely not. That would be completely inappropriate. After he's no longer your patient, Emma clarified. There's nothing inappropriate about that. Brianna shook her head, though the suggestion planted a seed she couldn't quite ignore. I don't even know if he's interested. And besides, patients sometimes form attachments to their caregivers that aren't real. It's just gratitude and dependency mixed up with recovery emotions. Or maybe he actually likes you, Emma countered. From what you've described, it sounds like there's definitely something there. I can't think about that right now. My job is to help him recover, not develop feelings. Even as she said it, Brianna knew she was lying to herself. The feelings were already there, carefully contained but undeniably present. She changed the subject, and Emma graciously allowed it, but the conversation lingered in Brianna's mind for days afterward. She found herself more aware of Vincent's presence, the way his eyes followed her around the therapy room, the genuine warmth in his voice when he greeted her. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling session that left Vincent drenched in sweat but triumphant after walking 200 feet with only the cane, he asked her an unexpected question. You ever grab coffee? Outside of work? Brianna's heart did something complicated in her chest. Sometimes. Why? Because I'd like to buy you a cup after I'm out of here. Vincent met her gaze directly. If you're interested. Professional boundaries warred with the genuine connection they'd built. Brianna took a breath. Ask me again when you're officially discharged. If you still want to, then yes. His smile was worth the risk. The remaining weeks of Vincent's recovery passed in a blur of intensity. He worked harder than ever, driven by something beyond just the desire to heal. Brianna matched his dedication, pushing him through exercises that left them both exhausted but satisfied with the visible progress. Sarah visited more frequently as Vincent's discharge date approached, often bringing tablets and phones that Vincent used for short bursts of work. Brianna gathered he was staying connected to whatever business had been left hanging during his recovery, though he remained tight-lipped about the specifics. Don't overdo it with the work, she cautioned one day, finding him tense and distracted. Stress impacts physical recovery. "I'm fine," Vincent said shortly, then softened. "Sorry, just dealing with some complications. Anything I can help with?" He looked at her with something like longing. "You already help more than you know." The words hung between them, weighted with meaning. Brianna felt heat rise in her cheeks and busied herself with adjusting the equipment. She was counting down the days until he was discharged, when the patient-therapist relationship ended and something else could potentially begin. The anticipation was both thrilling and terrifying. 3 days before Vincent's scheduled discharge, Brianna arrived at work to find the facility buzzing with unusual energy. Nurses clustered in hallways, whispering. Staff members kept glancing toward the administrative wing. "What's going on?" she asked Marcus, one of the other physical therapists. "Apparently, there's some big donor here. The director has been scrambling all morning." Marcus shrugged. "Something about a major contribution to the new wing they're planning." Brianna didn't have time to think much about it. She had morning patients, including a session with Mrs. Henderson, who was finally going home after 8 weeks. The woman hugged Brianna tightly, tears streaming down her face. "You gave me my life back," Mrs. Henderson said. "I can't thank you enough." "You did the work," Brianna replied, her own eyes stinging. "I just showed you the way." By the time she finished her morning sessions, it was nearly 1 o'clock. Vincent's therapy was scheduled for 2, giving her just enough time to grab lunch from the cafeteria. She was halfway through a mediocre sandwich when her supervisor, Janet, found her. "Brianna, I need to see you in my office. Now." Her stomach dropped. Janet's expression was unreadable, professional, and distant. Had she done something wrong, missed some crucial documentation? In Janet's office, Director Chen was waiting, along with a man in an expensive suit that Brianna didn't recognize. But she did recognize the woman standing beside him, Sarah Palmer. "Miss Cole, please sit down," Director Chen said, his voice carefully neutral. Brianna sat, confused and increasingly worried. "Is something wrong?" "That depends on your perspective." Janet folded her hands on the desk. "We've just learned something interesting about one of your patients, Vincent Palmer." Sarah stepped forward, her expression apologetic. "I'm sorry for the deception, Brianna, but Vincent insisted on privacy during his recovery. He didn't want his identity affecting his treatment." "I don't understand." Brianna looked between them, lost. The man in the suit spoke up. "Vincent Palmer is the founder and CEO of Palmer Industries, one of the largest manufacturing conglomerates in the country. His net worth is estimated at approximately $4 billion. The room tilted. Brianna gripped the arms of her chair. "What?" "My brother owns 17 factories, employs over 50,000 people globally, and has been trying to finalize a major acquisition from his hospital bed for the last 3 months," Sarah said gently. "He checked in here under minimal information because he didn't want special treatment. He wanted real recovery, not people walking on eggshells around him because of his money. $4 billion. The words didn't make sense. Vincent, who played poker with her for candy, who struggled through exercises with quiet determination, who wore hospital gowns and asked thoughtful questions about healing, was a billionaire. "Why are you telling me this now?" Brianna managed to ask. Director Chen leaned forward. "Because Vincent Palmer has just made a $10 million donation to this facility, specifically designated for expanding our physical therapy wing, and he's asked that you be consulted on the design and equipment selection." The room spun. Brianna pressed a hand to her forehead. "I need to talk to him." "He's waiting in his room," Sarah said. "He knew we were telling you. He wanted to explain himself." Brianna stood on shaking legs. "Excuse me." She walked through the facility in a daze, her mind racing. Billionaire. $4 billion. Palmer Industries. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The consultant designation, the vague references to people depending on him, Sarah's expensive clothes and the way she carried herself with effortless authority. And Vincent had lied to her, or at least, lied by omission. She pushed open his door without knocking. Vincent was standing by the window, leaning on his cane, shoulders tense. He turned when she entered, his expression guarded. "You're angry," he said quietly. "I'm confused." Brianna closed the door behind her, needing privacy for this conversation. "Were you ever going to tell me?" "Yes, today, actually." Vincent gestured to his suitcase, packed and ready in the corner. "I'm being discharged in 3 days. I was going to tell you everything then, explain why I kept it quiet." "Why did you?" The hurt in her voice surprised her. "Did you think I'd treat you differently?" "Everyone treats me differently." Vincent's jaw tightened. "The moment people learn about the money, I stop being a person and become an opportunity, a target, a walking checkbook. I'm not everyone, I know. That's why I waited." He took a step toward her, then stopped, uncertain. "Brianna, these past 3 months have been the most genuine human connection I've had in years. You saw me at my weakest, most frustrated, most vulnerable. And you treated me like a person who needed help, not like someone to impress or manipulate or use." "That's my job," she said, but the words came out softer than intended. "It stopped being just a job weeks ago, for both of us." Vincent held her gaze. "Tell me I'm wrong." She couldn't. The truth sat between them, undeniable and complicated. "You still should have told me. You're right. I should have." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "I kept waiting for the right moment, but there never was one, and the longer I waited, the harder it got." Brianna sank into the chair by his bed, processing. $10 million. A billionaire who played cards with her for candy. It was absurd. It was overwhelming. "What happens now? That depends on you." Vincent moved closer, carefully lowering himself to sit on the edge of the bed. They were nearly at eye level now. "I still want to buy you that coffee. I still want to get to know you outside of this place. But I understand if the money changes things." "Of course it changes things," Brianna said, almost laughing at the absurdity. "Vincent, you live in a completely different world than I do. I drive a car that barely starts. I eat pasta 3 times a week to save money, and I just learned that you could probably buy this entire facility without making a dent in your bank account. None of that matters to me. It matters to reality." She met his eyes, saw the genuine emotion there, and felt her resistance crumbling. "But I don't want to walk away." Hope flickered across his face. "No, no." Brianna took a shaky breath. "I like you, Vincent, the you I've gotten to know these past 3 months. And I want to believe that person is real, regardless of the bank account attached to him. He is real, more real than I've been in years." Vincent reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand closed over hers. His palm was warm, slightly rough from gripping therapy equipment. "The money is part of my life, but it doesn't define who I am. At least I don't want it to." "Okay." The word came out barely above a whisper, "but we take this slowly. I need time to wrap my head around all of this." "As slow as you need." Vincent's thumb traced across her knuckles, a simple touch that sent warmth through her entire body. "Thank you for not walking away. Thank you for being honest, finally." He smiled ruefully. "Better late than never, we'll see." But Brianna smiled back, and the tension in the room eased. They talked for another hour, Vincent filling in the blanks of his life. The company he'd built from a small manufacturing startup, his father left him, growing it into a global empire. The constant demands, the pressure, the loneliness of being surrounded by people who wanted something from him. The car accident that happened because he'd been driving himself home after a 70-hour work week, exhausted and distracted. "The doctor said I was lucky to be alive," Vincent said quietly. The other driver ran a red light, T-boned me directly on the driver's side. If I'd been in a smaller car, I probably wouldn't have made it. Brianna shuddered, imagining it. I'm glad you did. Me too. Especially now. He squeezed her hand gently. This recovery, as much as I've hated parts of it, has been the first time in a decade I've had to slow down and think about what actually matters. And what does matter? She asked. Not the money, not the empire. Vincent's dark eyes were intense, sincere. The people, the connections, being present for life instead of just racing through it. The words resonated in Brianna's chest. She'd chosen her career specifically because it was about connection, about helping people in their most vulnerable moments. She'd never wanted the corporate ladder or the pursuit of wealth. They came from different worlds, but maybe their values aligned more than the bank account suggested. 3 days later, Brianna helped Vincent pack the last of his belongings. He was steady on his feet now, the cane more precautionary than necessary. He'd graduate to outpatient therapy near his home, continuing the work they'd started. I'll send you my new therapist's information, Vincent said, carefully folding a shirt. For the transfer of care documentation. Good. Brianna handed him his phone charger. And stay consistent with the exercises. Don't let work distract you from recovery. Yes, madam. The teasing note in his voice made her smile. Sarah arrived to drive Vincent home, giving Brianna a warm hug. Thank you for taking such good care of him. And for giving him a chance, despite the complicated circumstances. He's worth it, Brianna said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. Vincent hugged her goodbye at his car, the embrace lasting just slightly longer than appropriate. I'll call you tonight, he murmured against her hair. About that coffee. I'll be waiting. She watched his car disappear down the facility driveway, feeling simultaneously lighter and more uncertain than she had in months. Her phone buzzed almost immediately. Emma, demanding an update on Vincent's discharge. Brianna called her, needing to hear a friendly voice. You will not believe what I'm about to tell you. By the time she finished explaining, Emma was shrieking loud enough that Brianna had to hold the phone away from her ear. A billionaire. Brianna, oh my God, you're dating a billionaire. I'm not dating him. We're just getting coffee. Right, because billionaires who spend 3 months falling for their physical therapists definitely just want to be friends. Emma's voice dripped with sarcasm. This is insane. This is amazing. I need to meet him. Slow down. Brianna laughed despite her nerves. We're taking this one step at a time. But that night, when Vincent called as promised, they talked for 3 hours. He was home, settled in a penthouse apartment that made Brianna's small studio feel even more tiny by comparison. He described the view of the city, the way his housekeeper had fussed over him, the stack of work waiting for his attention. But I'm following doctor's orders, he assured her. Limited hours, regular breaks, keeping up with exercises. Good. I didn't spend 3 months rebuilding your leg just for you to break it again. Trust me, I have significant motivation to stay healthy. The warmth in his voice made her heart flutter. They made plans for coffee that weekend, Vincent offering to pick her up. I can meet you there, Brianna suggested, still adjusting to the new dynamic. Brianna, I want to do this properly. Let me pick you up, please. She gave him her address, half terrified and half excited. Saturday morning, she changed outfits 4 times before settling on dark jeans and a soft blue sweater that Emma swore brought out her eyes. She'd spent extra time on her hair and makeup, feeling ridiculous but unable to help herself. When the knock came at her door, Brianna took a deep breath and opened it. Vincent stood in the hallway, and for a moment she just stared. He looked different outside the hospital setting. He wore dark slacks and a charcoal button-down that emphasized his broad shoulders, his dark hair styled neatly. He was still using the cane, but he carried himself with a confidence that had been muted during recovery. "Hi," he said, his eyes warming as he took her in. "You look beautiful." "Thank you. You look pretty good yourself." She grabbed her purse, suddenly shy. Ready, they walked to the elevator together, Vincent moving smoothly despite the cane. In the parking garage, he led her to a sleek black sedan where a driver waited. "You have a driver," Brianna said, stating the obvious. "I can't drive yet with the leg," Vincent explained. "And even when I can, I'm not sure I want to. The accident made me realize I'd rather pay attention to life than to traffic." The driver, a pleasant man named Thomas, greeted Brianna warmly and held the door open. Inside, the car was immaculate and comfortable, with leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Vincent settled beside her, close but not crowding. "I thought we'd go to this place downtown. It's small, quiet, good coffee." "Sounds perfect." The drive took 20 minutes, during which Vincent asked about her week, her other patients, whether she'd had time to relax. Normal conversation, but Brianna remained acutely aware of the luxury surrounding them. This was Vincent's everyday reality, and it was so far removed from her own life. The coffee shop turned out to be a charming little place tucked between bigger buildings, with exposed brick walls and mismatched furniture. Vincent ordered for them both after asking what she liked, and they found a corner table with surprising privacy. "This is nice," Brianna said, cradling her latte. "Not what I expected." "What did you expect? Champagne and caviar?" Vincent's eyes crinkled with amusement. "Maybe a little." She smiled sheepishly. "I'm still wrapping my head around the whole billionaire thing. I'm still the same person who played poker with you for candy." He reached across the table, palm up in invitation. When she placed her hand in his fingers laced through hers naturally. "The money changes logistics, but it doesn't change what I feel." "And what do you feel?" Brianna needed to hear it clearly. "Like I've been given a second chance, not just with my leg, but with my life." Vincent's expression grew serious. "The accident was a wake-up call. I was so consumed with work, with building and expanding and achieving, that I forgot to actually live. Then I spent 3 months forced to slow down, and I met someone who reminded me what actually matters." "Vincent." Her throat tightened with emotion. "I'm falling for you, Brianna. Maybe I've been falling since the first time you called me out for pushing too hard, refusing to let me get away with self-destructive stubbornness." His thumb traced patterns on the back of her hand. "I know this is complicated. I know the money creates obstacles and imbalances. But I'm asking you to give this a real chance." She looked into his dark eyes, saw the vulnerability there, the hope. This man who commanded $1 billion empire was sitting across from her, heart in his hands, asking for something money couldn't buy. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Your world is so different from mine. I don't know how to navigate it." "Then we'll figure it out together. And for the record, I find your world pretty intimidating too." At her surprised look, he continued, "You have this gift for helping people, for seeing past their defenses to what they actually need. You dedicated your career to service instead of profit. That's humbling for someone like me, who spent years chasing success measured in dollars." "You employ 50,000 people," Brianna pointed out. "That's not meaningless." "No, but it's not the same as helping someone walk again. Not the same as the way Mrs. Henderson hugged you when she went home, or how Miguel looks at you like you're his hero." Vincent's voice was soft. "You make a direct, tangible difference in people's lives every single day. That's remarkable." Warmth flooded through her. "You really see me that way." "I see you exactly as you are, smart, dedicated, compassionate, strong. Someone who doesn't back down from challenges and doesn't sugarcoat the truth." He squeezed her hand. "Someone I want to know better in every possible way." Brianna felt her last reservations crumbling. Okay, okay, yes, let's give this a real chance, she smiled, feeling lighter. But I have conditions. Name them. We take it slow. No rushing into anything just because you're used to making things happen quickly. And you have to keep being honest with me about everything. No more omissions even if you think you're protecting me. Agreed. Vincent's relief was palpable. Anything else? I'm keeping my job, my independence. I'm not someone who can be taken care of or managed. I wouldn't want you to be. He raised her hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. I fell for you because of who you are, not who I could mold you into. They spent the rest of the morning talking, really talking, sharing pieces of themselves beyond the patient-therapist dynamic. Vincent told her about growing up with pressure to succeed, losing his parents young, relying on Sarah, who'd raised him as much as their elderly grandmother. Brianna shared her own complicated family history, parents who divorced messily when she was 12, using her as a weapon against each other until she'd finally cut contact at 20. So we're both a little broken, Vincent said without judgment. Everyone is, aren't they? Just different pieces, different patterns. I suppose so, though I prefer to think of us as healing. His smile was genuine. We're good at that, apparently. They walked through downtown after coffee, Vincent's pace slower but steady. He pointed out buildings his company had renovated, projects he'd been involved with. Brianna saw the passion in his face when he talked about sustainable manufacturing, about creating jobs in struggling communities, about innovation that actually served people's needs. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was a man who cared about his work's impact beyond profit margins. Over the following weeks, they fell into a pattern. Dinners at quiet restaurants where Vincent wouldn't be recognized. Walks through parks where Brianna helped him build stamina. Movie nights at his penthouse where she marveled at the space, but insisted on bringing her own snacks because his fancy catered meals felt too formal. Vincent was patient with her adjustment, never pushing. He held her hand, kissed her cheek, left her wanting more but respecting her request for slow. Meanwhile, Brianna felt herself falling deeper with each conversation, each glimpse of the man beneath the billionaire exterior. He was thoughtful, remembering small details she mentioned. He was funny in a dry, understated way that caught her off guard. He listened when she talked about work frustrations, offering insight without trying to fix everything. And he was clearly crazy about her, in a way that made Brianna feel cherished rather than overwhelmed. 6 weeks after Vincent's discharge, he invited her to a company event. A gala fundraiser for manufacturing innovation, black tie required. I know it's not your scene, he said carefully, but I'd really like you there with me, officially. Brianna's stomach fluttered with nerves. As your date. As my girlfriend, if you're ready for that. Vincent cupped her face gently. I'm ready whenever you are. She thought about it for approximately 3 seconds. I'm ready. His kiss was soft and sweet, a promise of more to come. When they pulled apart, Brianna was breathless. I need a dress, she said practically. I don't own anything appropriate for a billionaire's gala. Let me know. She cut him off gently. I appreciate the offer, but I'll handle it. Emma will help. Emma, in fact, nearly passed out when Brianna called with the news. A gala. Oh my God, this is it. This is your Cinderella moment. It's not a fairy tale, Brianna protested, but she was smiling. They went shopping together, Emma steering them to consignment shops and sample sales where Brianna could find something beautiful without demolishing her savings. They finally discovered a midnight blue gown that fit like it was made for her, elegant and sophisticated without being overly flashy. You're going to knock him dead, Emma declared. The night of the gala, Vincent picked her up personally, having graduated from the cane to walking independently. He stopped dead when she opened the door, his expression arrested. "Brianna, you're stunning." She'd left her hair down in loose waves, kept her jewelry simple. The dress did most of the work. "Thank you. You look pretty amazing yourself." He did. The tuxedo emphasized his height and the strength he'd rebuilt through months of therapy. He moved with the confidence of a man comfortable in his own skin, fully recovered. "Ready to face the crowds?" he asked, offering his arm. "With you?" "Yes." The gala was held in a hotel ballroom that dripped with elegance. Chandeliers, white linens, flowers that probably cost more than Brianna's car. Everywhere she looked, people wore designer clothes and expensive jewelry, moving through the space with practiced ease. Vincent kept her close, his hand at the small of her back. He introduced her to colleagues and business partners, always as Brianna Cole, my girlfriend. The pride in his voice helped settle her nerves. People were curious but polite. A few women gave her assessing looks, clearly wondering about Vincent's unexpected +1. But mostly, the evening flowed smoothly, until they ran into Margaret Whitmore, a rail, thin socialite who looked at Brianna like she was something unpleasant. "Vincent, darling. So good to see you recovered." Margaret air kissed near his cheeks. "And who is this?" "Margaret, this is Brianna Cole." "Brianna Margaret Whitmore. Her family owns Whitmore Capital." "Charmed." Margaret's smile didn't reach her eyes. "And what do you do, Brianna?" "I'm a physical therapist." "Oh. How nice." The dismissal was clear. "Vincent, we must discuss that manufacturing deal. Can I steal you for a moment?" "Actually, Margaret, I'm right where I want to be." Vincent's voice was polite but firm. "Enjoy your evening." He steered Brianna away, and she released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "Sorry about that," Vincent murmured. "Margaret's always been predatory." "Does that happen a lot? People trying to separate you from your date?" "Usually I don't have dates worth staying with." He turned her to face him. "But you're worth standing my ground for." The evening continued, and Brianna gradually relaxed. She met Sarah again, who was warm and welcoming, treating Brianna like an old friend. She watched Vincent give a speech about the foundation's work, eloquent and passionate. She saw him in his element, commanding a room of influential people, and understood the weight he carried. During the dancing portion, Vincent pulled her onto the floor, holding her close as they swayed to the music. "Thank you for being here tonight," he said quietly. "I know this isn't easy." "It's getting easier." Brianna rested her head against his shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him. "As long as we're together, I can handle anything." "Good, because I plan to keep you around for a very long time." She looked up, meeting his eyes. The emotion there stole her breath. This wasn't just attraction or gratitude. This was real, deep, lasting. "I love you," Vincent said, the words simple and devastating. "I know it's fast and I know we're still figuring things out, but I love you, Brianna. Completely." Her heart expanded, filling with warmth and certainty. "I love you too." He kissed her there on the dance floor in front of hundreds of people, and Brianna didn't care who was watching. This was her moment, her man, her future unfolding. The months that followed were a beautiful chaos of adjustment. Brianna continued working at Riverside, refusing Vincent's gentle suggestions that she could take time off or reduce her hours. Her career mattered to her, and he respected that even if he worried about her exhausting schedule. Vincent was equally busy, but he made time. Lunch dates during her breaks. Evenings at her apartment where he learned to cook simple meals with her. Weekends exploring the city or simply existing together in comfortable silence. They navigated the complexities of their different worlds with humor and honesty. Brianna learned to be more comfortable at high-end events, while Vincent discovered the joy of grocery shopping and lazy movie marathons. They met each other halfway, creating a relationship that belonged to both of them. Sarah became a good friend, often joining them for dinners where she shared embarrassing stories about Vincent's childhood. Emma adored Vincent, declaring him worthy of Brianna's heart after a thorough interrogation that left him laughing. 6 months into their relationship, Vincent brought up moving in together. "I know your apartment is important to you," he said carefully, "but I have all this space, and I hate the nights you're not there. What if you kept your place but stayed with me most of the time?" Test it out before fully committing. Brianna considered it. Her studio apartment was tiny and barely functional, but it represented her independence. Still, she spent most nights at Vincent's anyway, going home mainly to water plants and collect mail. Okay, trial run. The trial run lasted 3 weeks before Brianna admitted defeat. Vincent's penthouse had become home, filled with her books and her laughter and their shared life. She gave notice on her apartment, and Vincent helped her pack, treating her modest possessions with the same care as his expensive furniture. "I'm keeping this," he declared, holding up her battered coffee maker. "Vincent, you have a professional espresso machine, but this one makes your coffee. That makes it important." She kissed him, overwhelmed by how much she loved this man. A year after Vincent's discharge from Riverside, the new physical therapy wing opened. Brianna had been deeply involved in the planning, consulting on equipment and layout and patient needs. The day of the ribbon-cutting ceremony, she stood beside Vincent as Director Chen thanked him profusely for his generosity. None of this would exist without Mr. Palmer's incredibly generous contribution, Chen announced to the gathered crowd of staff, patients, and press. Vincent squeezed Brianna's hand, then stepped to the microphone. "Actually, this wing exists because of Brianna Cole. She's the one who understood exactly what patients needed to heal. She's the one who pushed me through the hardest recovery of my life with compassion and honesty. This donation is just money. The real gift is having therapists like Brianna who dedicate their lives to helping others rebuild theirs." The applause was thunderous. Brianna felt tears threatening and blinked them back, smiling at Vincent with her whole heart. Afterward, touring the new space with its state-of-the-art equipment and patient-focused design, Vincent pulled her aside into one of the private therapy rooms. "I have something to ask you," he said, suddenly nervous in a way she'd never seen. "Vincent, what's wrong?" He took her hands, holding them gently. "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right, actually. You've made everything right." Then he was kneeling, moving carefully but steadily on the leg she'd helped him rebuild. From his pocket, he pulled a small velvet box. Brianna's breath caught. "Brianna Cole, you saw me at my lowest and refused to let me stay there. You pushed me, challenged me, cared for me when I was broken. You fell in love with me despite every reason not to, despite the complications and the differences in our worlds." Vincent's voice was thick with emotion. "You make me want to be better, to do more, to actually live instead of just work. You're my home, my heart, my everything. Will you marry me?" The ring was beautiful and perfect, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds that caught the light. But Brianna barely saw it through her tears. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, then stood and kissed her, deep and claiming and full of promise. Around them, the new therapy wing stood as a testament to where their love had begun. From patient and therapist to partners, lovers, best friends. "I love you," Vincent murmured against her lips. "I love you too. So much." They were married 6 months later in a ceremony that blended both their worlds. The guest list included billionaires and former patients, business colleagues, and Brianna's therapy co-workers. Emma was maid of honor. Sarah was Vincent's best woman. The venue was elegant but warm, filled with flowers and laughter. When Vincent said his vows, promising to cherish her strength and honor her independence, Brianna cried. When she promised to stand by him in sickness and health, having already proven it through his recovery, Vincent's voice broke. They honeymooned in New Zealand. 2 weeks of hiking and exploring and simply being together without work or obligations. Vincent was fully healed now, his legs strong enough for the challenging trails they tackled. Watching him climb mountains, Brianna felt pride in their shared accomplishment. "Remember when you could barely walk 10 feet?" she asked one evening, watching the sunset over pristine landscape. "I remember everything about those months, the pain, the frustration, the fear." Vincent pulled her close. "But mostly I remember you refusing to let me give up. You saved me, Brianna, in every way a person can be saved." "We saved each other," she corrected. "You showed me that taking risks on love is worth it, that different worlds can merge into something beautiful." Back home, they settled into married life with the same commitment they'd brought to Vincent's recovery. It wasn't always easy balancing their demanding careers and different backgrounds, but they faced every challenge together. Brianna continued at Riverside, eventually becoming head of the physical therapy department. She loved her work, the daily opportunity to help people rebuild their lives. Vincent supported her completely, attending department events and never once suggesting she should quit or slow down. Vincent threw himself into expanding Palmer Industries' philanthropic efforts, creating foundations for medical research and rehabilitation services. He involved Brianna in the medical initiatives, valuing her expertise and perspective. Together, they funded clinics in underserved communities and scholarship programs for aspiring physical therapists. 2 years into their marriage, Brianna discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with joy and terror in equal measure. She told Vincent over dinner at home, simply placing the positive test beside his plate. He stared at it, then at her, his eyes growing bright. "We're having a baby. We're having a baby," she confirmed. Vincent was around the table in seconds, pulling her into his arms, laughing and crying simultaneously. "Oh my God, we're going to be parents." The pregnancy was smooth, though Brianna worked up until her final month despite Vincent's concerned hovering. She trusted her body, having spent her career understanding physical limits and capabilities. Their daughter, Victoria Ann Palmer, arrived on a snowy December morning after 12 hours of labor. Vincent never left Brianna's side, holding her hand through every contraction, whispering encouragement and love. When the doctor placed Victoria in Brianna's arms, tiny and perfect and crying lustily, Vincent broke down completely. "She's perfect," he whispered, touching Victoria's tiny fist with one gentle finger. "You're both perfect." Brianna looked at her husband, at their daughter, at the life they'd built from the ashes of an accident and the foundation of genuine connection. "We did good. We did amazing." Vincent kissed her forehead, then Victoria's. "I love you both so much." Parenthood transformed them in ways they couldn't have anticipated. Vincent, who'd built a billion-dollar empire through hard work and determination, melted completely for his daughter. He took paternity leave, something unheard of among his peers, and spent weeks just holding Victoria, learning her cries and expressions. Brianna reduced her hours to part-time, a compromise that allowed her to maintain her career while being present for Victoria. Vincent's flexible schedule meant they could trade off childcare, creating a balance that worked for their family. Sarah was a devoted aunt, spoiling Victoria shamelessly. Emma became godmother, taking the role seriously while also providing comic relief with her attempts at babysitting. On Victoria's first birthday, they gathered at Vincent and Brianna's home for a small celebration. Watching her daughter smash cake with gleeful abandon, surrounded by people they loved, Brianna felt overwhelming gratitude. Vincent found her later, standing at the window overlooking the city. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her head. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. "How different my life could have been. If you hadn't been in that accident, if you hadn't come to Riverside, if you'd gone somewhere else for recovery." She leaned back against him. "All the little moments that led us here." "I think we would have found each other eventually," Vincent said. "Maybe not the same way, but somehow. You're my person, Brianna, in every universe, in every timeline." She turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd started as her patient and become her everything. "In every universe, I'd choose you." Their kiss was interrupted by Victoria's shriek of laughter as Sarah made funny faces at her. They broke apart, both smiling. "Come on," Brianna said, taking Vincent's hand. "Our daughter needs us." "Our daughter has us," he corrected. "Always." Years passed in the beautiful chaos of raising children. They had two more, a son they named William Vincent and another daughter, Sophia Grace. Their home filled with laughter and toys, and the constant motion of family life. Brianna eventually opened her own physical therapy clinic, focused on serving low-income patients, subsidized by Vincent's financial support, but run entirely by her vision. It was her dream realized, helping people who couldn't afford traditional rehabilitation services. Vincent gradually stepped back from day-to-day operations at Palmer Industries, training successors and focusing more on philanthropic work. He wanted to be present for his children's lives in ways his own parents hadn't been able to be. They traveled as a family, exposing their children to different cultures and experiences. They had game nights and movie marathons. They fought sometimes about parenting decisions or scheduling conflicts, but they always came back to the foundation of love and respect that had built their relationship. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Vincent took Brianna back to Riverside, to the therapy wing that bore both their names now. They walked through the quiet halls after hours, remembering. "This is where it started," Vincent said, standing in what had been his room, "where you first called me out for being stubborn." "You were impossible," Brianna said fondly, "so determined to rush recovery." "I was terrified," he admitted. "Not of the pain or the injury, but of being vulnerable, of needing help." He pulled her close. "Then you taught me that needing people isn't weakness, that letting someone in, letting someone care, is actually the bravest thing we can do." "You taught me to take risks," Brianna countered. "To believe that love could transcend different worlds and complicated circumstances. You showed me what it means to be truly partnered with someone." They kissed in the empty therapy room, surrounded by equipment and memories. Two people who'd found each other in the midst of pain and built something beautiful from the foundation of healing. Outside, their children waited with Sarah, who'd driven them over for the surprise anniversary visit. Victoria was 10 now, tall and inquisitive like her father, with Brianna's warm smile. William was 7, adventurous and empathetic. Sophia was 4, a whirlwind of energy and joy. "Mommy, Daddy," Sophia launched herself at them as they emerged, and Vincent caught her easily, swinging her up. "Hey, sweetheart, did you behave for Aunt Sarah?" "Always," Sarah said dryly. "If you define behaving as giving me a complete makeover with play makeup." Brianna laughed, taking in Sarah's glittery eyeshadow and pink lipstick. "She did a beautiful job. Can we get ice cream?" William asked hopefully. Vincent and Brianna exchanged glances, that wordless communication of long-married couples. "Ice cream sounds perfect," Vincent declared. They piled into the car, children chattering excitedly about flavors and toppings. Brianna reached across the console, lacing her fingers through Vincent's. He glanced over, eyes warm with love. "Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary. Here's to 10 more years, and 10 after that." "Forever," Vincent promised. "I want forever with you." Brianna squeezed his hand, watching their children in the rearview mirror, thinking about the life they'd built and the future stretching ahead. Forever sounds perfect, and it was. Not perfect without challenges or difficult days, but perfect in the ways that mattered. They'd started with a car accident and a broken leg, a physical therapist and a billionaire who kept his identity secret. They'd built trust through honesty, love through vulnerability, a family through dedication. The scars from Vincent's accident faded but never completely disappeared, a reminder of how fragile life could be and how precious every moment was. Brianna kept her career, helping countless patients find their own paths to recovery. Vincent used his resources to make real differences in people's lives, the money finally serving a purpose beyond accumulation. Their children grew up understanding both privilege and service, wealth and compassion. They learned that love wasn't about bank accounts or social status, but about showing up for people, about caring deeply and living authentically. On quiet nights, after the children were asleep, Vincent and Brianna would sit together on their balcony, looking out over the city lights. They'd talk about their days, their dreams, their gratitude for the unlikely path that brought them together. "Do you ever regret it?" Vincent asked one such night. "Giving up the simpler life you had before?" "Never." Brianna's answer was immediate and certain. "My life before was fine, but it wasn't this. It wasn't you, wasn't our family, wasn't the adventures we've had together." She turned to him. "Do you regret recovering at Riverside instead of some fancy private facility?" "Best decision I never made," Vincent said with a smile. "If I'd gone somewhere else, if I'd insisted on special treatment, I never would have met you. Never would have had the chance to fall in love with the woman who saw past everything to who I actually was." "Who you are," Brianna corrected. "Strong, caring, dedicated. A man who loves his family and uses his gifts to help others. That's who you've always been." They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, hearts aligned. The years ahead would bring more challenges and more joys, more growth and more love. Their children would grow and find their own paths. Vincent and Brianna would grow old together, their love deepening with each passing season. But in that moment, on that quiet night with the city spread below them and their sleeping children safe in their beds, everything was exactly as it should be. Two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances, who'd chosen love over fear, who'd built something lasting and true. From patient and therapist to partners in life, they'd traveled an extraordinary journey. And the best part was knowing the journey would continue, hand in hand, heart to heart, forever forward together. The story that started with an accident and recovery had become a love story for the ages. Not because of the money or the dramatic circumstances, but because two people had been brave enough to be vulnerable, honest enough to build trust, and committed enough to create something beautiful from the foundation of genuine connection. And in the end, that was what mattered most. Not the billions in the bank or the successful careers, but the love they shared, the family they'd created, and the life they'd built together. One day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of love at a time, their forever had only just begun.